From Sin Bin writers across North America, broadcast on the sinbin.net and YouTube, this is the Sin Bin Goon Squad.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matthew Harding, joined by Scotty, Wazz, and our special guest from the Quad City Times, Bobby Metcalf. We were going to have Joe Rozicki on, but Joe is ill, and after the week we've had, boss, get to feeling better, buddy. Definitely not the same without you here on our little endeavor this evening. Everybody, thank you very much for watching on YouTube and joining in on our live chat here this evening at the sinbin.net. Let's bring in Scotty and Bobby. Boys, how you guys doing?
Good, Matt. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks.
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this, Bobby, on such short notice. I had the idea yesterday. I was like, man, we're just gonna have 3 people, and I thought, man, we need a guest. So who can I get? And I thought, well, let's do Bobby Metcalf. So first one that came to mind, and we're happy that you said yes. And thank you very much for doing this on such short notice. Let's get into what we're going to talk about here this evening, and we'll start first with our major headlines here from the past few days across the ECHL and AHL. And Scotty, if you want to give us a little bit of a synopsis from last week's farm report, from what you were talking about last week and what you've had so far this week, go ahead and share that with our audience.
Well, basically for last week, there was a lot to talk about. Mark Vistinen and his return and how he's been doing fairly well in Rockford for the Ice Hogs after a serious ankle injury shelved him last season. But going into this week, one of the bigger things, especially, is going to be the teams that have been doing oh so well, including the Toronto Marlies, who have seemed to found the plots, which is good for them, the Toronto Maple Leafs in the future, and also the Kyle Dubas and the Brass in Toronto saying they're going to make sure that the kids stay in the AHL and develop throughout before we get the NHL call, which will be good for the Marlies and good for the kids' development. And also coming up, it has to be the play of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, 12-1-0 in their first 13 games on an 11-game winning streak. And it seems that Matt Murray, who won the MVP last year in the AHL, is for realist. He's been stymieing every AHL shooter he's come upon. So right now that's what is looking for, because the California thing seems to have died a horrible, horrible death as we got excited for it, and now it's just there. It's like the blue post in the ECHL. You hardly recognize them, but they're still there.
How has that novelty sort of worn off? It just seems like that they are out there on their own sort of continent, if you will. Nobody's really going out to play them. They're playing almost exclusively so far in their own division.
Yeah, and that's an odd situation that they've been in. And there's also something from the farm report about Kenny Augustino of Stockton, and he says it's a different pace for the sheer fact that it's almost like his college days where they're only playing weekend games, and it's hard for the teams to get a rhythm, and a lot of the players are having a tough time adjusting if there is weekday games. Stockton played a weekday game on Wednesday against San Diego, which is definitely a rare occasion, and Stockton was prepared for it, where San Diego seemed to be very lost out of the chute, even though John Gibson gave a valiant effort. It's funny to see just how much these guys play against each other, because it's almost like the old West Coast Hockey League, where it's just 5 teams battering against each other, and it almost gets boring by the time December rolls around.
Bobby, that's kind of like the old Central Division last year in the ECHL, where you just had 7 teams playing by themselves, and by the time the playoffs were there, you were like, well, the rivalries are the rivalries. We just, like Scotty said, I'm just tired of seeing the same guys.
Yeah, it has been a fresh take this year to see some new teams, just coming into the Quad Cities this year. But as we saw last year, it doesn't really matter who you play in the regular season. I mean, Allen played basically CHL teams all year, went on and won the ECHL Cup. So, the variety would be nice for those teams to kind of grow the sport, but the way it's been put together, you kind of just have to make do with what you've got.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna sidetrack this a little bit. Apparently we are not streaming, so I got to figure out how to set this up. Huh. Oh man, what did I do here?
We are going live because the yellow bar is up, so I know that much. It will be
Okay.
archived, but it might not be on the site straight away. So we are good to go. If the people can find the Ubity tubes, then we'll be okay with that. But if they can't, well, they're lost.
Okay. Well, I will just I will throw the link for the Ubity tubes up on our Twitter page.
Perfect.
There we go. And we'll just cut this out.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll fix it. Or it'll just sit there and I'll look dumb. Anyway.
Either way.
I'm fine with that. So as we move into the rest of the move toward Thanksgiving, one of the articles that we had on the sinbin.net this week came from our California writers, Duck and Hound, and they had some really interesting numbers here, and I'll share them with you about the early reviews of the American Hockey League so far in their new old existence. It looks like the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins are sporting a plus 29 goal differential. The Ontario Reign are the next closest with a plus 14 in 12 games. Scoring seems to be down a little bit, but is it me, or does scoring seem to be down a little bit in the American Hockey League in favor of more defense, Scotty?
I think that's right. I think definitely they're teaching defense or teaching own zone coverage at least, and I think the goalies are better too. I mean, for the Ontario Reign, they have Peter Budaj was lights out for him. Matt Murray has been lights out. Chris Gibson and Stephen Williams of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers have been pretty lights out. So the goaltending is a lot better too. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. So number, just like a girl in a bathing suit, numbers tell everything, but they don't show the whole thing. And it's something where I think as people start to figure out goalies and schemes and stuff like that, there will be more of a counterattack to that. But they are definitely interesting numbers that they put together as I look at it here on the sinbin.net. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it progresses. But it's definitely something to keep an eye out for the rest of the season.
You think that at some point here this evening, or at some point during the season, we'll see the defense kind of catch up to the rate that the offense is being produced and sort of neutralize each other, especially as we get toward the second, third, fourth, and fifth times that teams see each other?
Yeah, I think when the familiarity comes into play, there will be a definite balancing out. And, it's early season just in general where, people are still trying to find their way, find their, what their niche is, and see where they're, especially with coaches trying to find out which players fit into which scenarios for what they want. And especially with call-ups, when call-ups start to happen in the, to the NHL, that will have quite an effect as well to see what players come in and how they, what kind of role they play, even though a lot of these teams down the line for affiliates are kind of running the same system from the NHL, AHL, and ECHL.
Now, Bobby, I'll bring you in here because the Quad City Mallards have had some very good players come down from the AHL Iowa Wild. Tell us a little bit about how that affiliation has helped the Mallards so far this season.
Well, I mean, so far this season, we're getting to see a lot of talented players that, were in Alaska last year. I mean, you look at Olivier Archambault, Raphael Bussieres is coming on strong, Guillaume Jelena, defenseman. It's making for an exciting kind of hockey to watch on the ice, but, at the same time, as if you're watching the Mallards, you're sitting there going, all right, they're starting to click, but you're waiting for the shoe to drop because, you look at Iowa, in the AHL, they're last in their division, having a bunch of call-ups to the NHL again, with injuries, and you're waiting, okay, when are we going to see Archambault go back up? When are we going to see Bussieres, who's been playing really well, go back up? It's not quite the same as it has been in years past, where you're sitting there and you're confident that you're going to have basically the same guys on the ice almost every single night. Now you're waiting for the inevitable call-ups that I'm sure are going to happen.
Yeah, every team's going to go through that at some point this season. We're seeing it in the Central Division already with the Allen Americans. They've had Gary Steffes called up this season already to San Jose, and now they are without one of their bigger scorers from last season, and Kelly Cup playoff MVP Gregor Hansen, who's also with the team in San Jose this season. The American League call-ups, as you say, are a double-edged sword. They'll help your team for a little while, and then they'll come back and bite you. And then it's to me, I think if you're, and I'll get your guys' reaction on this. I think if you're going to build a perfect ECHL team, you're going to need a mix of those players who can stay through a full season and those who are called up, so that way there's a familiarity with the system throughout the season, throughout the team, and then you just have those contracted players from the AHL who just elevator up and down throughout the season, who when they come, they're impact players, and when they're not there, you have players sitting off, playing a second or a third line who could possibly step up and fill that role.
I think to that point, you're looking at sorry, Scott, but look at what Terry Ruskowski does with the Quad City Mallards, and I think very overlooked aspect of his what he does is his GM role. In years past, he was bringing in guys and bringing in all of his guys, and they would get some call-ups, but that was the thing for the last couple of years. He was bringing in only his guys. This year, he's kind of had the reins taken out of his hands a little bit because he now has to play certain guys sent down from Iowa, and as opposed to in years past where he always knew that he was going to have his guys, Jeff Lee or Nicholas Ryu going to be on the ice. Now he's going, okay, I don't know who's going to be on the ice any single night because I don't know who's going to get called up.
And I mean, with an ECHL, AHL thing, if guys are elevator up and down, there is a familiarity there. But I wonder with you, Matt, and question to you, Matt, is like for a team like Wichita who has no affiliation right now, isn't that a little bit more deadly to have a mix when you don't know when guys are going to be sent up and sent down? It almost seems like there's going to be 15 or 16 voices in the players' ears at any given moment. I mean, how fearful are you of that to happen, where guys are just coming from any kind of any which way in the AHL just to come in and get playing time?
I don't think Wichita has not had one single call-up this season, and they've not had one AHL contracted player on the team this season. This is a loaded question because the team has gotten off to a slow start at 5-8 and 1, I believe, through 14 games. The team just hasn't performed offensively, and so I think if there was going to be one call-up, it would be David Shantz, who has just stood on his head night after night, in that he only had one stinker of a game, and that was last Friday night against Missouri when he allowed 5 goals on 21 shots in the first period. I think what the team needs is an AHL journeyman who can't find or who needs a place to sort of retool his game, and maybe if Wichita kind of takes the Fort Wayne model of we're going to sort of rehabilitate these players who have sort of lost their way and then get them back up to the American Hockey League, that should be the way that they take if they're not going to have an affiliation. But I think right now with the offense being the way it is, and you have your offense is struggling when, no offense to Peter Sakaris, but he's your leading scorer. He's 10 points through I think 9 or 10 games with the team, so that's, to me, not necessarily a good sign. But they do have some AHL talent on this team. Brandon Martell was with the Lake Erie Monsters during camp as a tryout, and he's a very smart stay-at-home defenseman. There are some diamonds in the rough on the team, but I think the overall record of the team right now is just overshadowing everything.
Yeah, and it just to build a team, I think you do have to have that. Yeah, your AHL journeyman or a guy who's still trying to find a spot Don't know how many of those guys are out there. There could be some out there, and I think if a coach can help these guys buy into it as well, depending on what kind of power, as Bobby mentioned, sometimes their hands are tied. You have to have a nice mix, but you also have to have guys buy into it as well. Not think of the demotion to the ECHL as a demotion, much less as just something to condition them and get them into the right game shape.
Right, yeah, and I think we've seen that a little bit in especially a team like Missouri. A team that has not had much in the way of call-ups yet. I think that's coming for a team like Missouri, especially with the run that they are on. But you look at a team like Missouri, and then you look at a team like Wichita or Colorado, and Missouri is just so much quicker than everybody on the ice. Bobby's seen it up there in Quad City when Missouri and Quad have played a few times. Missouri is just a half step to a step quicker than everybody on the ice, and I think that's the players. Even though the players have come down, I think that's the players buying into the system and realizing that we're only going to get better as we can only work the system down here, and if we do what we need to do down here, then that will pay off with a promotion up higher. But we'll talk about Missouri here in just a few minutes, but I think that if you're looking for a complete team who buys into the system top to bottom, it's right up the highway here in Missouri.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when you see the goalies are top 2 in goals against. I mean, Parker Milner, who Bobby knows very well, who played in Quad City last year. I mean, he's been lights out. So is Josh Robinson. That's a team to be looking for. And if anybody watched Adirondack from the stands, they might be realizing that they're not too shabby of a team either. So
right.
I think Adirondack in the East is looking pretty fancy as well.
Yeah, Joe and the Missouri Mavericks stealing Parker Milner from this team was a tough one to swallow. That guy is just lights out. To a couple of your guys' points, I mean, those AHL kind of journeyman players are out there. You look at the Mallards who brought in Kevin Henderson last week, and he's slowly getting into the systems and playing well. And I mean, you got to the problem with this level, you've got to deal with guys getting sent down and hoping that they can figure it out, that they need to work on it and not pout. I mean, you've got AHL guys who are on AHL contracts who come down here and they're going, well, I don't belong down here, and they don't buy into systems, and that's what you don't want. And obviously, like you guys are talking about with Missouri, you got to get guys who come in and buy in and realize that if they just work hard, the call-ups are going to come.
Yeah, and Bobby alluded to a great point here that you just, a lot of those guys truly do see it as a demotion, and they pout until, and the one instance that comes to mind from the old Central League days is Peter Delmas, who got sent down from Wheeling to Wichita, and I think Delmas had he's a really good goaltender. Delmas had a 0-7-1 record, if I remember correctly, 0-7-1 record in 9 or 10 starts in Wichita, and then was sent back up and played lights out hockey. So I mean, and I almost asked I think I did at the time whether and it wasn't the defense. I don't believe it surely wasn't the defense in front of Peter Delmas that was causing him to lose all these games. A lot of Thunder fans seen that 0-7-1 or 2 mark as sort of Delmas kind of coming down and pouting because he was just not. This was not where he wanted to be. He wanted to be playing up higher with Wheeling or further up the chain in the American Hockey League, and to me, that is the kind of player that you don't want to have, is somebody like Bobby said who's just going to come down and pout.
Yeah, and
that's
look
just an issue.
at him now.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, guys.
I was going to say, and look at him now. He's playing university hockey in Ontario, so now he's pouting all the way through school.
Yeah, Yeah. So did he? Did he get a start in the NHL, or did he go? Did he get called up to the show?
AHL is as high as he went. Hamilton
Okay.
Bulldogs for 5 appearances and had a 1-2-1 record in those games with the
Oh, okay.
Hamilton Bulldogs.
There you go. Thanks for the info there, bud.
Hockey DB is great.
Yeah, it is, and I probably mutilated the record on Domus here when he was here in Wichita.
Yeah, only 0-3-1, but his numbers 485 goals against and an 836 save. That's not good at all. It's actually really terrible.
I gave him 4 extra losses. I probably my apologies to
probably
Peter
felt
Domus.
that way though.
It probably did. My apologies to Peter Domus for tagging him with 4 extra losses there. So yeah, I mean, we'll wrap up the old AHL deal on this. I just, if you're in a, I honestly think that there will be at some point down the line, where we'll see the 1-to-1 relationship between the National Hockey League, American Hockey League, and ECHL. I think it's going to take a little bit of time with the NHL looking to expand by 2 teams possibly in the future. But I think if you're going to be successful at this league, in this league, you need 3 things. One, you need a stable coach, and you need that coach like a Terry Ruskowski, who's done a great job in Quad City and literally has revived hockey in that market. You need a stable coach like him, and then you need a stable ownership group, and then you need a stable affiliation. If you have all 3 of those things, and the affiliation needs to be one that just takes and gives, and not one or the other. So I mean, players are the players, and they're called up and sent down for whatever reason. But if you have an affiliation that is doing, that is helping not only the team, not only like Bridgeport's helping themselves, as you wrote about, Scotty, but they're also helping Missouri, because Missouri now has scouts at every single game, and that's something that we never seen before with the Missouri Mavericks when Scott Hillman was there, or last year with Richard Matvichuk. So there's also strength and conditioning coaches and all that kinds of stuff. So like the affiliation needs to help out, not just in sending down players.
Absolutely. And I mean, I talked to Kerry Kaplan earlier in the year at Brampton, and he said getting the affiliation with Montreal has been a godsend for him, not only because of the players that they're getting, but just because of what the coaches have been able to filter down to the ECHL level as well. And they've gotten some pretty big names that have been haven't worked too much in the Hamilton system, so they just need a little bit more conditioning. So guys have been sent down to Brampton, and that's helped Brampton out a lot as they start off pretty horrible, but they're finally getting towards that middle, just inch by inch. Though, who knows what that's going to take them with the call-ups from there.
Yeah. Bob, you got anything to add there, buddy?
No, not on this point. I mean, the thing we all have to realize, and fans of these teams, the ECHL teams, never like to see these guys get called up, but that's what they're here to do. I mean, these guys are, I say it's every guy who gets called up. Okay, get out of here. I don't want to see you come back. I mean, that's what this league is for development, and we don't want to see these guys in our town for very long, because hopefully they can succeed and get up to the higher level.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll move on here and talk about some of the the ECHL headlines here as we're nearing the quarter pole, I suppose, of the 2014-15 season. Thanksgiving just around the corner here, and we're starting to see, I think, some of the better teams come to the forefront. There's still some mid-level teams there that you wonder if they're going to work up or fall back later on in the season, and then your Evansvilles are your Evansvilles, and we'll talk about them here in just a few minutes. But the overwhelming storyline has been the radical turnaround in Missouri. They've gotten off now to an 11-2-0-1 start, good for a league best 23 points and a 6-game winning streak. Scotty, you wrote about this with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, how they're helping, how they're improving throughout, and they're using the leadership angle to do that, and that seems to be filtering down to Missouri as well.
Yeah, I think the Islanders organization has done a great job with this year, especially with their AHL, and bringing on Missouri at the end of last season and into this season. I mean, and you look at the guys. I mean, Connor Jones, who is Kellen Jones' twin brother, he's up there in Bridgeport, and I'm sure Kellen could be up there soon. He started off pretty hot. Tyler Barnes is a guy who I think he's going to get plucked from Missouri real soon, because he's the guy who saw some time in the AHL last year, but didn't get to stick many places. So I think, all the way through, it's been good for the team in Missouri, obviously, as it's shown on the ice, that the Islanders have been developing and having their coaches talk to one another through and through. And I think that's a process that most affiliated teams need to do, is get every single coach on board and to buy into the bigger system.
Yeah, and it sure seems like that the buy-in is happening throughout, because, like you said, Scotty, there's so much talent on that Missouri Mavericks squad, and they went through a very rough time of it last year. That was the first season that they had not been in the mix for a playoff berth or made a deep playoff run in their existence, and the fan base was not at all happy with that. And our Joe Rosicki wrote about this over the summer, that the general manager Brent Thiessen and Richard Maffichuk, the head coach, made it a solitary pledge and not so much to the fans, but they were not going to go through that again this season. And come hell or high water, they have seemingly avoided that to this point of the season. Bobby, we've watched Missouri quite a bit this season. What is it that stands out to you about the Mavericks here so far?
You touched on it a little earlier. I mean, they are just a fast team. I mean, if you don't take away their space, they are right by you. First of all, as a Cubs fan, as a guy who's watched the Mallards almost disappear, it must be rough to have one losing season and everyone's up in arms. But they're a really good team. And look at their goaltending. I mean, they're top 2 goaltenders in the league. I've obviously seen Parker Milner all last year. They are just a solid team. I mean, that was a close game they had with the Mallards, and the Mallards played them tough in the second game. But I mean, when QC went down there a couple weeks ago, they just got swamped.
Yeah, and it's as we've said, it's not just Parker Milner, it's Josh Robinson too, a guy who came over from Europe last season, and he's been lights out for the Mavs so far this season, with a league leading goals against average at 1.36. He, just looking here at the ECHL stats really quickly, he's let me see here. Doesn't lead the league in wins. That is done by Ryan Farragher in Utah. But him and Milner are right there, top 1-2 in goals against average. And we asked them several times when I've interviewed them if there seems to be a little bit of a goaltender controversy there, and neither one seems to really say yes or no. It's always, well, if Millsy's having a good night, then I'm going to be rooting for Millsy, and if Robo's having a good night, I'm going to be rooting for him. So they don't seem to play into what everybody else thinks is this one-upsmanship in a goaltender controversy. And the defense in front of him as well, led by Trevor Ludwig, former Allen American, has been absolutely solid as well this season. I don't think that they've allowed very many 3 or 4 goal games here early on this season.
You weren't able to get Milner to bite, huh? Couldn't get him to throw anyone under the bus. I'm used to that.
Couldn't get either one of them. I will tell you that you won't find a nicer guy than Parker Milner. He was after a shutout or a one goal allowed in a game, and I had a chance to interview him and talk to him about the success he's had. You won't find a nicer guy than Parker Milner. He was all about it and deflecting it to his teammates, and they make him better and things like that, saying all the right things. So they've got a good guy up there in Missouri.
Yeah, and I know Joe said after the Allen win that they put the division on notice. I think they put the league on notice. 4-1 win over Allen. I mean that's a big win, obviously, right there. I don't care what time of the season it is. It will be interesting to see what happens when they get out of their division just a little bit, because obviously, a lot of the games have been against individual opponents. So.
And I think when you talk about buying into a system, that's what Robinson and Milner are doing. I mean, you want to talk about guys who don't want to rock the boat or don't want to take too much away from the actual team effort. That's exactly what they're doing. And that's actually a breath of fresh air, as the kids like to say, in a situation like this, especially when things are going this well.
Yeah. I mean, and they're all having fun, and you know what, like Tanner Fritz scored his first goal of the season, and I think it was his first professional goal. When I interviewed him a week or so ago, when he played him against Wichita, and they were all high-fiving him and things like that. So there's a complete buy-in, not only on the team level, but it seems like the organization level as well. And you're right, Scotty. That is a really good breath of fresh air, because if you get around a team that is, 500 or worse, or a little bit like that, you can have those situations where guys are not as pleasant with each other, I suppose. So
yeah, I don't think enough emphasis is put on how well a team gets along with each other. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if nobody likes playing with each other, if nobody likes going in that locker room on a daily basis, you're not going to work. So, I mean, obviously, I haven't really talked to any of these guys down in Missouri except for Parker, but knowing what Milner brings to a team as far as personality, if they're clicking like this, I'm sure that's a pretty close locker room too.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, Bobby, it'll be interesting to see what they do when they get outside of the division. 6 of their 11 wins have been against Wichita, but all of them seemingly have been in dominant fashion this season against the Thunder team, who has lacked for offense at times this season. So, like you say, it will be interesting to see what they do when they go to play, in Idaho or a Utah, or even move over to play the Fort Wayne Comets and later this season. So it will be interesting to see more about that. But I want to keep it in the Kansas City area here, and there was an interesting article before we get back to our discussion in the ECHL. And there was an interesting article that came out this week that alluded to the Stephen brothers, which own 3 of the 28 ECHL franchises, the Wichita Thunder, Allen Americans, and Tulsa Oilers, that they may be wanting to bring minor pro hockey or another ECHL or AHL team to Kemper Arena in Kansas City. And, I think I understand pretty clearly what the boss's thoughts are on this, and he thought that it was the worst idea ever. And so I will second that and say I honestly don't believe that it's a good idea that they put a team in Kemper Arena in Kansas City. I'm kind of interested in hearing your guys' points on this, and we'll start with Scotty here first.
I mean, I think you look at this whole thing, and I'm looking at this article, and obviously one of the things is the Mavericks being there, and also the fact they don't want to buy or own Kemper Arena. That could be a stalling point as well. But as a whole, it seems that it would be not only saturating a market that may or may not be may not be able to support one hockey team, much less 2 hockey teams, and I don't know. I don't think that. Them coming into business and trying to tread all over the competition, like it almost seems like they're trying to put a team in there just to take out the competition that is the Mavericks, and it's not really more of a hockey thing; it's more of a business thing, and that seems odd to me.
I'll second that. I don't think you can really oversaturate any market with the type of teams. I mean, if they're really looking to get another team, to own another team, go somewhere else that doesn't have another market. This, as far as I can tell, from being an outside source, this kind of just smells of some dirty laundry, some dirty deeds going on right now. I don't agree with it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I don't see this as being, I think they see the kind of success that Missouri is having up there, and they've for the entire run of the Missouri Mavericks, they've had sellouts. It's been the East Jackson County fan base, and to a larger extent the Kansas City fan base, have had a love affair with the Mavericks. Win, lose, or draw, it's been that way since day one with that franchise. And I think they see that, and I'm obviously not speaking for them, but I think they can see, maybe an avenue to get into that, and I just don't. You're right. I don't see how adding a second team would be beneficial to that area. I mean, even if it was an American Hockey League team, which I don't think the American Hockey League would expand, provided the provided the NHL would expand. That is, as far as I understand, not going to happen. So for that to be, for that to be the case, it would have to be an ECHL team, and then I don't see it because they already own 3. So I just don't see it as a good idea. Not really putting my thoughts to paper here, but
well, it's mind-boggling because it doesn't seem like it's real. It doesn't seem like a situation that you would want to be real, because I mean, I don't know the history of the Stephen brothers and what they've done, or maybe they've tried to buy the Missouri Mavericks out, and then Lamar Hunt swoops in and gets them, and maybe they're just bitter bears about it. But it just reeks of just corporate awfulness.
It does, and I mean, if you come down to Wichita at all or anything like that, they have. They own restaurants. They own a lot of restaurants. They own a lot of car dealerships. They own a lot of fitness places, and they own 3 hockey teams that are scattered throughout the Midwest. And so, somebody's got to get in there and tell them, hey, 3 hockey teams with what you guys have here is enough. Yeah.
The question I have though is, I mean, again, from an outside source, I don't know, but are the fans going to see Mavericks games? Are they pure Mavericks fans? It seems like they are, or are they hockey fans? You look at 20 years ago, and I hate to keep bringing back to the Mallards, but obviously that's kind of what I know. That's a place that was selling out every night because it was new. The Mallards were winning. It was novel. It was fun. You look at now. I mean, obviously the Mallards went through a ton of upheaval, but 3,000-4,000. They're not getting 9,000 crowds anymore. And those fans are Mallards fans. They're not hockey fans. There aren't that many hockey fans in this area. They're Mallards fans, and that's people who keep coming to games. So if you dilute the market even more by putting another team in the Kansas City area, are you banking on the fact that there are that many hockey fans out there, or are they just Mavericks fans who are going to watch Mavericks games? That's the question I think you have to look at.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question. Scotty, you got anything there?
No, I mean that's perfect. Because if you're going to bank on that there's being that many hockey fans out there, then you're banking on a losing option, because it seems that the Missouri Mavericks have found the niche in that Kansas City area that other teams in the past that have come from the United League and through there have not been able to. I mean, they found their niche, they found their fan base, and I remember back in those heydays of the Quad City Mallards when they were going through teams in the UHL, they had a great big fan base, and now the Quad City DJs, so they're all into music now. Actually, that was a '90s reference I shouldn't have made. I'm sorry. I'm going to stricken that from the. We'll fix that in post too.
Now, Bobby's into pop culture. If you follow Bobby on Twitter. On game nights, him and Joe get after it a little bit and do the pop culture deal. So I'm sure Bobby could pick that up on the pop reference there. I like.
If I want to follow Bobby, where would I follow Bobby on Twitter?
You can follow Bobby on Twitter at Bobby Metcalf 88.
There you go.
Don't expect all amount because working for a newspaper, you cover a lot of things. So you'll be getting some high school prep sports, occasional college sports, and then the occasional Cubs tweet if I'm in the right mood. But so
obviously,
yeah, Quad City DJs. The Quad City DJs are not from the Quad Cities, so.
Well, my life has now changed. I can't listen to them anymore, knowing that now, and I'm gonna have to throw that CD out of my car. All right. Well, at least I learned something today. Thank goodness.
Is that the Space Jam CD or?
Yeah, no, I got a Jock Jam Space Jam mix. It's really great. My CD changer in the back of my '84 Taurus is just it's great. I love it. It's yay.
He hot-wired the car to put in a CD player.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to feel like you're young again and not like you're an adult and have responsibilities. So that's what I do.
That's true. I listen to I find that by listening to 80s music, since that was my year. That was my decade. So.
There was a decade of Matt, the 80s, just in general. Like it's just.
Yeah.
You have a scrapbook. It says the decade of Matt.
Yes. It's the summer of George, and then the 80s were the decade of Matt. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Thank God for Sirius. There's and by the way, there's the mid-show tweet shout out to follow Bobby at Bobby Metcalf 88. And Bobby, I gotta say really quick though before we move on, you've had as a Cubs fan, you've got to have a good feeling about next year. You have the reigning Cy Young Award winner, the reigning Rookie of the Year, and the reigning NL Manager of the Year there in Joe Madden.
And 3 guys who got MVP votes too. Yeah, except it's the Cubs, and I'm sure they'll blow it next year. Rizzo will get hurt, and Arrieta will have Tommy John surgery, and they'll be bottom of the division again. It's typical being Cubs fan. So this year was fun though.
Cubs optimism coming out in droves from Bobby. Holy jeez.
This year was a lot of fun. It's just man, you look at that division, and in the back of your head, I mean. All year I was thinking that I said all year they're going to make the playoffs. All year I said, hey, Back to the Future Part 2, right? Cubs win the World Series. But, man, it just gets tough when you get into the playoffs. So, but we'll see. It was a fun year.
Yeah, it was for sure. And it was really pulling for the Chicago-Kansas City World Series. But as a Royals fan, as you can see back y'all, glad that the Royals pulled it out. So I had to debut the banner at between the jerseys. May have to lower that next time. I don't know. But yeah.
Me, I forgot you were a Royals fan, so congratulations to you.
Yes.
They would have destroyed the Cubs in the World Series.
Yeah, and an even bigger congratulations to our resident hardcore Royals fan Ryan Gibson, who does the pregame shows with Joe in Missouri and. Does some contributions for us on the podcast, but Gibby was fired up when we played "We Are the Champions" last time. You have to go back and listen to it because I think we caught Gibby by surprise, and he was he was pumping the air pretty good apparently. So Gibby paints quite the picture of what he was doing while that song was playing at the intro of the podcast.
I don't know. I'm an Orioles fan. We haven't had anything to cheer about since '83, and that's when I was born. So not much to cheer about whatsoever. But we got a great ballpark. How about, guys? It's great ball. Oh God.
You have Natty Bows.
Yes, we do. Boy, did I pound that when I was home. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that was a great time for me, and it helped out a lot. It helped the week along just grand. Yay, Baltimore.
Natty Bows in Yingling, right?
Yingling is more Pennsylvania. That is your Philadelphia region, your central Pennsylvania as well. If you want to drift up to Hershey, Harrisburg, why wouldn't you? Those are city of industries. I think that's what the history books told me, but they were outdated.
Nice. Well, let's get the train back on the track here, and we'll talk about the rest of the ECHL and just looking through the standings. guys, are there any sort of storylines that stand out to you? Obviously, Adirondack getting off to a really hot start here, 10-2-0, and good for 20 points, sits 2 points behind Florida with 4 games in hand here as we prepare for action on this weekend before Thanksgiving.
I'll defer to Bobby real quick because he knows the ECHL better than I, and then I'll collect my thoughts and then go from there.
Well, okay. I think we obviously have talked about Missouri to death. That's, I think, the biggest storyline. But you look at some of the good teams. Obviously, like I say, Adirondack's playing well. I think Wheeling has had some really good games. Look at that! I mean, that Wheeling comeback that they had last week, that was insane. It's really too early to tell. I mean, the problem is at this point, guys aren't hurt for the most part. There aren't that many call-ups. It's just really hard to tell what exactly we have at this point in the season.
Yeah, that's definitely something. I think one thing that I want to look at is just, at least through the rest of the season, is whether or not Toledo can get back on track. They've had, they're middling right now at a 500 record, but it doesn't seem like Jeff Lurg and Jake Patterson have been the same guys they were last year. I mean, Lurg came out of nowhere and had a hell of a season. I think losing Tyler Barnes the way they did to Missouri hurt their offense just a little bit. They were playing this morning, and they were up 2-1, and then it choked away from them, and they lost in a shootout to Kalamazoo. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Walleye can bounce back and get to their I guess, semi-dominant fashion that they had in the regular season last year.
Yeah, and then to your point too, Alaska is surprising me so far. Sorry, I think Alaska's surprising me so far. I mean, obviously they've struggled a little bit, last year. This year obviously has been rough, but that just because of the Mallards Wild affiliation with them, losing that affiliation I think clearly hurt them. They're not getting the same type of players they are, but I was just surprised when I saw them come in. I expected a much more competitive team, and I was not expecting what I saw when they came in here last week, and get to see them again on Friday.
Yeah, Alaska is a surprise as well. The one thing that I think stands out to me right now is the Tulsa Oilers at 4-6-0-1 with 9 points, and they're last in the Midwest or Central Division rather. We always said that it would take some time for Jason Christie to come in and get his players, and it certainly seems that way. I thought, and I definitely was not one of those pundits, if you will, who thought that Jason Christie would come in and immediately win right away. But is it surprising to either one of you to see Tulsa get off to this slow of start to the season?
Yeah, I mean, knowing what. Having seen Tulsa the last few years in the Central Hockey League and the division last year, that's a Tulsa team that usually, under Ramsey was always playing hard. Always, you never count them out. Again, but you look at what they're doing. I mean, they've got players. Kevin Carr is still playing really well for them. It's just surprising that they haven't been able to put it together yet.
It could just be unlucky bounces of just just bad breaks here and there. I mean, it's not as if they're getting blown out. It's only a -4 goal differential, so it's not like, I mean, they're in every game for all intents and purposes. But I'm pretty sure this team and how they feel is probably not indicative of how their record and the slow start there. I think they'll get it together, and once after Thanksgiving they'll be able to pull together and hopefully go ahead, not for at the expense of your Wichita Thunder there, Matt, but hey, who knows? They could sneak up and get off to a little bit of a slow start, but then come on gangbusters at the halfway mark.
Yeah, and I always thought that would be the case, that this team would start out slow, and by the time we got to the halfway mark of the season, that you'll start to see the true Jason Christie identity Tulsa Oilers come through in the second half of the season, that the team in the second half is not going to be representative of the team in the first half of the season. So, that was just something I brought up. But if we were going to, here's a question for you guys, and if we were going to have, a team, if we were going to look at a team and say contender, pretender, or whatever, At what point of the season would you think that we would look at them and give them that designation? Certain, with the ECHL not having a true all-star game or break, there is a break built in, but there's not an all-star game this season. But if you were to look at the teams and go contender, pretender, or otherwise, about what time of the year would you look at that and make that determination?
I think you guys start looking as soon as possibly about Christmas, the Christmas break. I know kind of the mentality, especially with all these teams that are affiliated, is you've got to be pretty impressive and pretty much into a kind of in a playoff situation by Christmas, because that's going to be when the AHL starts coming around and calling for your players, and you can become a completely different team after Christmas. So I think Christmas time you're going to have to look and basically see, okay, who are the teams at the top? Who has anybody done enough to separate themselves from the rest of the pack at that point?
Yeah, I definitely think around that time, right around Christmas, because you're gonna get the midway, and you're gonna see what guys are able to soldier on through adversity, whatever the first half of the season was, and then what coaches can adapt if their team is down, or how coaches can adapt to guys, just being having the target on their back. I think right around Christmas time, or whenever they change the jerseys. I don't know what that kind of marks the midway point too, right? When they go to the colored jerseys at home, I think I will go with that one. I'll go with the time they change the jerseys, because I have no other scientific knowledge of this.
Yeah, that happens late January. So you're willing to wait on the team until late January?
I'm willing to sit on a team until late January, because I always like that second half kick some teams have, because you're going to see a lot of guys with the call-ups and with injuries. Who knows what's going to happen? You can have a team that's out of it by January 21st, but still kick it into high gear and get there and have a great run until April and maybe just miss the playoffs. So I think it's again, no scientific knowledge whatsoever. I'm just going with aesthetics, and I think a team can be that down. It's not as if there's anyone who's completely blown away yet. I think around that time, anywhere between Christmas and January 21st, I'm taking it a month. That month is perfect.
You're gonna give it a month.
I'll give it a month. Just like a pregnancy test, I'll give it a month.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Interesting statistics for you. 75% of the teams in playoff spots in the ECHL on Thanksgiving will make the playoffs. So there you go. I mean,
40% of statistics are made up. 85% people know that.
That is true. That is true. So, without statistics, though, what fun would sports be?
You're right, especially those advanced statistics that I know nothing about because I didn't take trigonometry.
Yeah, I took all the way to Calc 3 and still failed. So there you go. There you
Perfect.
go. So let's put the bow on the ECHL here and talk about the Evansville Icemen here, and we've had some incredible reporting done by the Sin Bin's Mike Finazzo this week, talking about the situation in Evansville, and the Icemen went to a local television station on Monday night, and they sat down for an interview with a reporter there, and we have that interview up on the sinbin.net if you want to take a look at that. But it was basically saying that we have the Icemen went to the city, or went to the television station rather, and had said essentially we're at a stalemate in our lease negotiations, and we are asking our fans to help put pressure on the city to make sure that the team has a place to play next season. The team then put out a press release Monday night and said, quote, "In order to have a team for the 2016-2017 season, the Icemen must have a lease in place with the city and dates of games to the league no later than December 1st, 2015. The Icemen started negotiations on the new lease with the mayor's office in February. The city has proposed no terms to the Icemen for the new lease. The ECHL conducted And then Jim Riggs in this press release said the ECHL conducted a study for the 2011-12 season showing the Icemen paid the highest rent in the entire league, $650,000. The median for the league is about $152,000. So the city then gave a sort of a counter proposal, if you will. Apparently the sides had exchanged proposals, and the city of Evansville went back to the team yesterday, and Mike was able to get the exclusive details on this. And by the way, you know, as an aside to all this, Mike has done some fantastic reporting on this story, and you should, if you are a fan of Evansville or if you are interested in the business side of hockey at all, come to the sinbin.net and give this a read. So some of the highlights of the new package that the Icemen received from the city of Evansville was that the counter proposal is structured similarly to the Fort Wayne lease agreement that they have with the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum. The counter proposal changes the Icemen's $26,500 annually in rent, of which that can be stepped down based on attendance. All food and beverages sales are paid to the city. That is apparently the situation now. The city receives a $2 per ticket facility fee, which it also received under the old deal. So I guess the first question I want to ask here is, first of all, at what point does, I mean, in you know, Bobby, you've seen this with Quad City, and at what point does an organization, you know, obviously the Icemen felt like it needed to go public with the stalemate there, but do you believe that airing out the business in the public domain is good business? I think that's a fair question. Let's start there. Is bringing the fact that you are in a stalemate negotiation-wise to the public domain, and you're asking for the public's help, good business for a hockey team who you're asking them to give money to?
You're asking that question?
It's a really heavy question. I get it.
Yeah. I think they have to do it if it's almost like a desperation move. Seems like, you know, you don't see teams or businesses tend to do things like this, and it sounds like, you know, just reading from the outside, and I will agree, Mike did a great job on this story. You know, that this is kind of they're asking their fans to help. You know, this is a team that struggles, and yet still, you know, I think what's it like in the 5,000s in attendance. I mean, they clearly have a solid fan base. I just I don't know if it's good business, but it's clearly, you know, it seems like they're kind of at a last straw, that, you know, that they're at the most desperate right now.
I think when you look at it from the outside, it's probably not the best way to do business, but it's also one of those things where you're allowing your fans to know what the deal is. It's not as if you're going to close up shop and then after you say, hey, this is our last season, then things go into motion, and the fans are like, well, we could have helped with this, that, and the other thing. So I think that could be a tactic that they're using, just in terms of, you know, hey, we're having an open door policy with our fans. Here's what's happening. Here's what we need from you guys, and this, that, the other thing. So I think on that end, it's good for the team to open up to their fans. Probably not the best negotiating tool, but you know, I guess by any means necessary. We're running up on the December 1st deadline that they have, so it's hard not to just, you know, put everything out on the table for everyone to see. So it maybe puts pressure on each side to get a deal done, because it's like, okay, well, everyone knows now, so we're going to get questions here, there, and everywhere from our constituents whether or not we can get a deal done between, you know, the city and the team.
Yeah, and you're right. I do think that, you know, the call to the constituents to help, you know, sort of set the ball in motion here is kind of reeks of desperation. But if you want to see hockey there, I mean, they do have a junior team, I believe, in Evansville. Not sure of the name though. But if you do want to see if you do want to see at least professional hockey in the Ford Center, then we're going to need your help. I completely understand that. But to me, it does reek of a little bit of desperation. But then again, I mean, we are, as you say, 11 or 12 days from December 1st, and the ball has to get rolling here because we're going to have holiday here next week. So, when asked when Mike asked COO Jim Riggs if the hard and fast 60 dates rule was a sort of a drop dead date for negotiations, the Evansville Iceman played it as a hard and fast rule. Riggs said. He said, "quote If we're down to the nitty gritty and we're not there yet, they would assume that they'd have to go and ask for a 48-hour extension. We don't know the penalty we would be, so we've been operating from day one rather that December 1st we better have 60 dates to the ECHL office." Mike asked Riggs to clarify if no deal was reached, what would happen, and then Riggs said, "quote Owner Ron Geary has no intention of moving the team anywhere. He believes in the Evansville market. Certainly the Evansville market has shown to us they're unbelievably supportive. We would love nothing more than to get through this and finally get this team into the playoffs." So it doesn't seem like there would be a motive or an impetus to move the team because of a sour lease negotiation, and it honestly sounds like that this will get done. At least the city is confident that this will get done from their end. But I wonder, if if we have another lease negotiation or things like that, 5 years from now, if we get down to the wire again, are they going to go back to the constituents and ask again for help? Because at some point, this is sort of a cry wolf mentality, if you will.
Yeah, and just kind of on that point, it's like you said, it does not breed good standing, good blood for future things down the road. I mean, when you get to this, this is basically, like you said, if this does get done, it'd be interesting to see what happens when the next lease negotiation comes up, because both sides are going to have this in the back of their head, and it's going to, I think it's going to bleed over. It's never good to have to pull all this stuff, at any point, no matter whether it was your first lease negotiation or your last.
Yeah, this is a situation where it is a last-ditch effort where you go out to the public. And for clarification, if you're scoring at home or even if you're alone, the Evansville Thunderbolts of the NA3HL, Tier 3 U.S. Junior Hockey, is the other team that is. And they started this year, so good for expansion team. Way to go, Tier 3 Junior Hockey.
And they are playing at the Swander Arena, if I remember correctly, Mike. I literally have, as I was telling the guys earlier today, I literally have zero prep. So
I wonder how you pulled that one out. See, because it's wordplay, hilarious. Ha!
So yeah, but I wonder, obviously, if the push is to get Evansville to the playoffs this year, and you're trying to bring in top quality players, this is obviously not a good look either. Am I right?
No. You look at, what, 4 or 5 years ago with Mallard's going through the same thing. Mallard's almost out of, lose the franchise, and you got players sitting around to a different extent, not knowing if they were going to have a season. I mean, here it's, players come in and they don't know if they're going to have a building to play in a year, and that's not an attractive anything for any player who, if they're trying to decide if they want to come into an organization.
Maybe the Stephen brothers can buy them. That would be something.
Don't put that out there.
But it's out there now. I can't take it back. It's out of my hand.
You did. It's out there on the YouTubes. It's out there.
Perfect.
You did it.
My plans are going perfectly.
I'm blaming you if it won't happen, but yeah, I just, I share Mike's optimism in helping Mike work this story. I share Mike's optimism that these sides will get it done. As Andrew Brandt says all the time, deadlines spur action, so we don't necessarily need to wait until. We didn't necessarily need to hear about the push now. Obviously, it needed to be done at some point, but if and it will be interesting to see when everything shakes out and there is a new lease agreement. Like I said, I think there will be. Where exactly the negotiations fell and why they took the tenor that they did and why the public needed to get involved. That to me is where I think the story moves forward after the lease after an agreement is announced by either the city or the organization. Is why did you feel the need to pull the trigger and get the public in on this before a resolution was sought?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I mean, we're going through that up here in Calgary in terms of just the Flames trying to put out to the public what they're trying to get and what the city's offering and stuff like that. It's one of those things where I guess you try to test the waters, but in the end, it's not something you want to do. I mean, you want to keep everything, all the business stuff behind closed doors, or else, yeah, it's going to be stewing in the back of the head. So I don't know. I wish the best for Evansville. It's a solid market for a team that hasn't been living up to standard, if you could say that, in the past few years.
Yeah, and the fan base deserves to have a winning team on the ice. I think they have a good coach in Al Sims. I think they just need more tools, and I think that the fans deserve it. They deserve to not have stinker seasons like they've had new faces in the front office like it's been a revolving door over the last few years there in Evansville. And hopefully Ron Geary and Jim Riggs and the brass there in Evansville will have calmed that down and can now turn the tide and make Evansville the powerhouse that they need, because the powerhouse that I think fans want, because as we say, the Evansville Icemen are drawing over 5,000 a game so far this season, and I mean, if you just imagine a packed Ford Center, if you have a team that is in the upper echelon of the ECHL, that to me would be a great venue to watch a game of hockey.
Yeah, and I mean, for the Evansville fans listening, I mean, if done right, if a team can be built back up. I mean, you think this is bad again, and going with what I know, the Mallards 4 years ago were almost gone. I mean, that was a team that has been one of the most historical, teams in minor league hockey back in the day, and they were almost dead. They got the right guys in. Obviously, Jordan Melville came in and saved them. They got a good president in McNamara. They found a good coach in Ruskowski. They did the right things, and they're seeing the fruits of their labor pay off now. Not just on the ice, but off the ice. If you can get the right pieces in and get the right things done, I think Evansville is a great market for hockey, and I think that if you do the right things, that you can see the turnaround happen.
I concur. I've never been to Evansville. I've never even stopped there on a layover, but I hear it's a great town. So, why not put something there, especially if they're going to be able to get something to work? But it's a matter of getting it to work. Whether it's one side's holding another side hostage, I don't know. But it's an odd situation. I'm glad we here at the SinBin.net have been able to give the exclusives. So that's always good for us. It's good for us to get the news out there because the fans need it. And why not?
Yeah, exactly. And again, huge kudos to Mike Finazzo, who has done a really good job on this story, and you can check out his reporting on the SinBin.net. Want to move on to the Southern Professional Hockey League, and earlier today the SPHL, Scotty is fired up for this. The SPHL unveiled the new logo for the Roanoke franchise. Scotty, fill us in on what happened there.
Well, the ownership group of Bob McGinn and NHL/AHLers Ty, Brock, and Jamie McGinn unveiled the Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs. Dogs spelled it D-A-W-G-S because why not? It shows a dog with hands holding a hockey stick and a conductor's hat and overalls with railway with train tracks all across the outside as laurels, and it could be the greatest team name we have had since the Swamp Rabbits. I mean, we are in a prime time of sport right now with the Swamp Rabbits and the Rail Yard Dogs. It's quite fantastic. Their jerseys are navy blue, light blue, yellow, and white. So this is a hell of a time to be alive, let me tell you.
That's a mouthful. That is a mouthful to say.
I think they get paid by the word, so I think it's gonna help them overall. It's gonna show what the announcers are made of. That's for sure. Maybe that's the test for announcers to move up in the SPHL to the ECHL. If you can say that without bungling it 3 times a night, you'll be fine.
Oof. Oof. I can't do it. I seen the logo. I thought it was actually a pretty cool logo. I'm interested in seeing what their jersey. How their jersey mock-ups look with the
they actually displayed them live during the unveiling. So there's just a few undermined pictures. There's small pictures, phone pictures as it were. So I'm sure once everyone takes, because the thing happened not too long ago, so I'm sure as the day goes on and stuff will trickle out into the night. But it was a nice looking jersey. It almost reminded me of Toledo's blue jerseys with just piping around the shoulders, but a blue on blue with yellow situation. So it didn't look too bad. The logo is pretty sweet, but man, that name, you couldn't think of. Come on, that's oof, wolf. Wolf, literally, for dogs. See? Ah.
Yeah. There you go. I do have to ask though. We are all connoisseurs of hockey in some form or fashion. What is your favorite minor pro hockey logo? Sans Swamp Rabbits, because I know your answer.
Yeah, my answer. It's. Are we talking current day or are we talking all time?
Current day.
Current day.
Because all time is
it takes too long because there's been 4,000 teams.
Right.
Bobby, you wanna chime in while I ponder mine? I guess that's a good question.
Well, he took the Swamp Rabbits away, so there's that. But,
I see Bobby in the bottom part of the window here, and I said no Swamp Rabbits, and Bobby's head just went back up against the wall.
Yeah. Oh man, that's just a. Put me on the spot again. Solar Bears?
Around these parts.
Solar Bears, maybe?
That's not a bad one. Solar Bears.
That's not a bad one. No.
I'm going to have to go... Oh, man, it's really tough because I like a lot. I'm a big logo guy. Not the TV station because that's just weird. But I'm going to go Fayetteville Fire Ants. It's an angry ant. He's holding a hockey stick. He looks like... Ants are scary, especially fire ants. Those things bite you. You're gonna be hurting for a while. So that's a pretty decent logo too. So by the way, if your kids want to show, if you're watching the YouTubes, I'm gonna do a little thing called Scotty Screen Share. I do this on my other show completely. Here you go. Here is the jersey for your Rail Yard Dogs. A nice little yellow and blue and everything connotation. So they got that going for them at least. So it doesn't look half bad.
Yeah. That is not bad, and we might have to steal Scotty's screen share.
By all means, we'll talk residuals afterwards. But we'll go ahead and hit screen share. But yeah, that's the fun jerseys right now. They look pretty fun.
I like the Toledo Walleye.
Yeah, the walleye isn't bad. Again, fish with hands.
It's a festive, fish with hands and silky mitts. It's just a kind of a vibrant jersey. I like it, but I'm not. I do like the. I'm an old. Being a Thunder fan, I love I love the old Wichita logos, and I wish that I hope that they will bring them back for the 25th anniversary next year. But a close second would be the Idaho Steelheads, which I have their jersey right over here.
Beautiful with the trees in the back on the side. It looks great.
Yes, that is from the Derek Laxdal days up
Ooh.
there in Boise when they won the Kelly Cup. So that is my favorite. Those are my two favorite jerseys: the Toledo Walleye, and if you're going to go a little back in the day, the former Idaho Steelheads logo. So.
Yeah, I have to say the walleye is really cool because it's got the fins above the TV numbers too. So it's like they're fish and they're swimming and things and stuff.
Yes. So there's our plug for jerseys. We'll be taking jersey teams. Mail those to us.
I got two that have a soft spot in my heart too. I mean, you talk about bringing back a jersey. It would be nice to see, with the 20th anniversary of the Mallards coming up, to them go back to the original ones with the burgundy and the green and the duck with the stick in his mouth. I grew up in this area. I loved those jerseys growing up. Those were nice. I'd like to see those come back if they could for the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, those were sharp-looking jerseys for their time as well, and I hope that they will as well. Well, how far are they away from their 20th anniversary? Is that next season?
Next season.
Okay, because it's
2 years with the Flames, but this will be the 20th year of the Mallards next year.
Nice. So we'll wrap it up here, and we'll talk about the National Hockey League going to 3-on-3 for the All-Star game next season. I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday, but the league announced that the All-Star game will be transformed into a 3-on-3 All-Star tournament comprised of 3 20-minute games played by divisional All-Star teams competing for a winner-take-all $1 million prize. Each divisional All-Star team will have 11 players, 6 forward, 3 defensemen, and 2 goalies. How did they come up with 11 players and 3 of them are defensemen? I don't know. Looks like the first 2 20-minute games will be the semifinal round, with the Central Division All-Stars playing the Pacific Division, the Metropolitan Division All-Stars playing the Atlantic Division, and the winners will play in the third game. So, let's have at it here. What do you guys think of this format?
Well, I discussed this on Face Off Hockey Show Wednesdays at 7:30 last night when we talked about. And then another caveat to this is, first, all 3 of us hated the fact that the draft is gone, because that means drunken players behind the stage aren't going to be out there. So that stinks. And also, we like the fact that there was only one fan vote, and that's for the captains of each division. But I don't know if I like this or not. It's All-Star games are All-Star games. No one gives a crap about them. So the NHL is trying to boost it up, and they saw how great the 3-on-3 overtime has been and the reception they've gotten from that. So I guess they decided to go with this. If they really wanted to gimmick this up and jump the shark, next year, wherever it is, 3-on-3, outdoors, done. You're out of here. You can just sign the check to all the monies, and the fans will go and enjoy it. That you hold it outdoors. I mean, the All-Star game is kind of, I guess, with nothing to play for except for this new gimmick we have now. No one cares. I've longed against the All-Star game. Just make it into like a Comic-Con situation where players show up and they sign autographs, and that way you have the interaction with the fans and the players and things of that ilk. So that's how I sees it.
I'm like with you. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but I'm trending towards I hate it. 3-on-3 overtime works great because overtimes are short. You want to talk about 20 minutes of 3-on-3 hockey? For was it 3 games, right? Semis and a final. So you're talking about 60 minutes of hockey. I don't know about that. I just, exactly. All-Star games never work. The only All-Star game that none of these players wants to go out and play, get hurt. I just don't know. I'm not. I don't think I'm a huge fan. I don't know. I mean, like I said, 3-on-3 hockey for 60 minutes. That seems clearly close to unwatchable to me. More unwatchable than the All-Star game has been in years past.
Right. Yeah. I'm not a fan of this. I barely watch the NHL All-Star Game, so I think I stopped watching it 5 or 6 years ago. And I barely watch the skills competition anymore. I'm like Scotty. I'll watch the draft for the drunk players off stage. So I just don't. You're gimmicking 3-on-3 hockey, and that's a real quick way for 3-on-3 hockey to jump the shark because it's exciting. And I completely agree with you, Bobby. There's no way that you're going to make 3-on-3 for 20 minutes exciting. It's going to be 42-38 hockey games in the All-Star game, and there's just not going to be a whole lot of talent being there. It's just 6 guys going and skating. So I'm not a fan of this. I may watch it just for the novelty of it, though. Just may log a little bit of time for the novelty of it, but other than that, I doubt it. And it's a good thing that they're not doing this in Columbus this year because Columbus would run out of cannonballs.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great, though. I mean, that thing's the devil. But this could be a record number of people dropping out of the All-Star game due to groin injuries before the All-Star break. So that's a thing we can look out for as well. And the chance that Dustin Bufflin will have to play 20 minutes of 3-on-3 because he's a big man and he already hates the overtime. So why not make him play a whole 20-minute period of it?
Could you imagine Buff playing 20 minutes of 3-on-3? The guy already looks like he needs an oxygen tank out there. He may die.
Well, it's funny because he logged 18 minutes in junior when he with the Brandon Wheat Kings, and dude was 320. He slimmed down. He was 320 at that point. And I'm like, how are you? Huh? And you're in Brandon, Manitoba? What the hell? And now look at him now. Look at him. He's a slim trim 285. So God bless him.
Don't want to plug another site other than your guys's, but did you guys, Greg Wyshynski, Yahoo happened to write an article about this format and everything. Part in there, he said that the players didn't like the draft because it was embarrassing, to get picked last. I think that was something that he said. I thought that was ridiculous. I mean, these are grown men who are professional athletes who are getting paid millions of dollars, and they're getting embarrassed because they're picked last. I just think, I don't know. The All-Star game, you might as well do away with the All-Star game, what you're doing right now with it, in my opinion.
First off, bleep Wyshynski because of the fact that he's not sending books to Sean Leahy, his associate editor, had to buy a book, and he couldn't just walk down the road and give it to him. First off, I don't like that. But I'm sure we'll be fine with it. His book you can buy on Amazon today. It's $12. It's a great read. JR forwarded. It's fantastic. But I mean, overall, yeah, just do away with it. Have like a fan fest thing because, in all honesty, the NHL doesn't make money off of this. It's all about the city. Nashville is going to make a decent chunk of change with their restaurants, with the hotels. So the commerce of the city will grow. So it's not for the NHL, it's for the host city. And then, you put a convention or whatever midway point of the year. It's a nice break for the players. They don't have to play. The All-Star game can be Young Stars game and Skills Cup or whatever you want to do. But, I mean, just that will be the real people that hurt is the city, the host cities, because, yeah, they won't be able to bank in on all the out-of-towners and their monies.
How much longer do you guys think that the NHL is going to continue with the format, especially if they're playing in the Olympics in 2 years and we're going to have the World Cup of Hockey next year? How much longer do you think that an all-star format is feasible for the National Hockey League? I can't think that it's going to last much longer.
I would argue to say it hasn't worked in 25 years. So, I mean, it's rough to say, but yeah, they skipped the All-Star game for every Olympic year, and the World Cup of Hockey is just going to throw another thing into it. I think we're at the death day for the NHL in the All-Star game.
I do with All-Star games from every single sport, including baseball. I mean, I know baseball is the competitive one, and it's the one that matters because it determines all home field in the World Series, which again is an idiotic thing, but just do away with them. I mean. Okay, so you name an all-star team and those guys get named. Great. They don't need to play another game to determine which league of superstars is the best. They're all superstars. They're all great players. The fans are going to come out and support them no matter what. Just like what you said, Sky. Just do a fan service to them and have them come out and be available to sign autographs for people. I mean, this is getting ridiculous when you have to do these types of shenanigans to try and draw fans.
does it make me a degenerate if I want the All-Star game only in football and basketball so I can bet the over? Because that could be the easiest bet you can make all year. So if I bet the over in the Pro Bowl and the NBA All-Star game, I think I'm raking in a lot of money, and I could kick my feet up on a chaise lounge and watch the money roll in on Easy Street.
These games they're for kids. I mean, that sounds derogatory, but it's not. Growing up, when I was 5, 6, 7, I loved watching the Pro Bowl, loved watching the NHL All-Star game, loved watching all these All-Star games because you get to see all the players. But when you get to, that's who these games are for. Make them for the kids. But for adults, there's no incentive to get adults to watch these games.
No, and I agree with you, Scotty. You're not a degenerate for betting the over in the Pro Bowl and All-Star game. Now, if you're, I don't know if they bet on the home run derby or not, but you might.
Am I a degenerate for betting WNBA games?
Yes, you
are. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. Now we have a split decision. I'm betting the LA Sparks all the time. Why wouldn't I? Lisa Leslie's still there, right? She still play? I don't know. Okay. Well, all right.
You gotta go Chicago Sky. Elena Deladon, my girl.
Perfect. All right. Well, then
there you go.
Chicago Sky are my team. Perfect. Done.
Or Diana Taurasi.
Boom. I remember she was from UConn.
Is it sad that 3 guys know that many WNBA players?
Rebecca Lobo. Yay. That's another one.
And yeah. So I don't get me wrong. I agree with Bobby. I think that they should do with All-Star game. I should do away with all All-Star games, especially baseball. Baseball, you should have home field advantage in the World Series based on best record throughout the regular season. And if that were the case, that would have been the St. Louis Cardinals or the Kansas City Royals. You shouldn't have it based off of what other competitors that are not on your team do in an All-Star game. So, yeah. So I think, and I agree with you, Scotty, that I think we're on death's door with the NHL All-Star game, especially if we're going to see these players playing earlier in the season with the World Cup and then playing for their country in the Olympics, maybe in 2018. So. Lots to discuss there, and I think also tonight Pierre LeBrun from ESPN reported that the NHL will implement bye weeks for teams during the 2016-17 season. Just reading his reporting here, the league will build in a 5-day bye week for each team into their schedule between January 1 and February 28th next season. Players will be completely off with no practice during the break. There will be practice permitted after 4 p.m. local time on the 5th day if there is a game on the 6th day. Otherwise, no practice will be allowed on the 5th day. So that's, in a way, how the NHL is getting around the players being taxed by playing the World Cup of Hockey next year, at least.
Yeah, that's an interesting report, and I think it's not a bad idea. By that time, guys are beaten up, and I'm sure a 5-day break would do some of these guys right. So that's an interesting topic, and maybe that's something where they're just going to say, hey, we're going to implement this, for forever and ever and ever, and now we can all play all the Olympics, even when they're in South Korea and the games are on at 6 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, which would help night owls like you and I, Scotty.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. I'll put something on my computer. I'll be watching the games at 4 a.m. Mountain Time. It's going to be great. I'm going to love life and watch Germany defeat South Korea, as I am wont to do. Because that's a rivalry for the ages, guys. You don't even know. The Germany and South Korea hockey rivalry dates back to 29 when Hans Gruber did something to Nakatomi Plaza. Actually, I think that's a movie. I don't know, actually. So...
All right.
Pretty sure that was Die Hard, actually. I'm pretty sure that I just recited Die Hard's. Okay, yeah. Moving on.
I'm pretty sure you did, too. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up here, and we'll go around the room here and tell everybody how you can find them on social media. Bobby, let's start with you.
Once again, I am at Bobby Metcalf 88. You can always find my work on QCtimes.com. That like I said, I don't just cover the Mallards or any ECHL. I do a lot of prep beats and some college stuff, and that's so if you follow me, prepare to be inundated and bombarded with some stuff you probably don't care about. I do want to say one thing to you guys. Thanks again for having me on. I think what you guys have been doing has been awesome. I was following you, Matt, when you were with Minor League Hockey Report. Joe obviously has done. You guys have done an amazing job, and it's pretty impressive to see what you guys have been able to do so far.
Thank you very much, Bobby, and I'm sure Joe obviously seconds that as well. And Bobby's one of the best. I've known Bobby for a couple years, dating back to the Minor League Hockey Report days. So give him a follow. Very, very insightful writer up there in Quad City. Scotty, how can people find you on the tweets and the Facebooks?
On the Twitters, you can find me at Scotty Wazz if you want hockey, randomness, Baltimore stuff, and all around just laziness. You can find me also at faceoffhockeyshow.com, and FOHS Radio on Facebook is where that stuff is. And always, thanks, Bobby, for joining us, and thank you, Matt, for curating this whole thing.
I am a poor curator, but did not have my wingman here this evening with me, Joe Rozicki. But thank you very much, guys, for joining us. And Scotty, it's always nice to see you. Bobby, always nice to see you as well. I am on the tweets at Sin Bin Thunder. I'm on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Sin Bin Thunder, and you can find all of our stuff, plus Scotty's Face-Off Show hockey reports. Face-Off Show, yeah, I think that's it, right?
Face-Off Hockey Show Farm Report.
There we go. Yeah, you can find that also every Sunday on the sinbin.net. So for everybody working hard behind the scenes here at the sinbin.net, and for Bobby and for Scotty, I'm Matthew Harding. Thank you very much for watching us, and we will talk to you next month. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.